guy went to the doctor.
Okay.
And he told the doctor, Doc, help me, I'm shrinking.
I feel like that sometimes. Mainly when it's cold out.
You know what the doc said?
What?
He said, settle down, man. You just have to learn to be a little patient.
Oh, my God.
And I'm drinking a Smirnoff Ice Crisp Citrus Original.
I feel like, this is going to offend people, but that's kind of a girly drink. Like,
I'm okay with my manhood.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I have a Diet Pepsi, so I don't know what the heck I'm talking about.
Yeah, no. It's not like a Diet Pepsi with lime.
Oh, yeah.
If it was that, it would be too girly.
Straight out of the can is more manly. I'm
drinking straight out of the can, too, although it's a powder blue, baby blue can.
I do like that it has citrus in it. I have some theories that if you drink a lot of citrus, you'll be healthier. So,
is that true?
I don't know. I went 4 years without having a cold.
Punk rock. It's a lot of vitamin C.
Yeah, that's what I think it was. Lately, though, it's the cold has been on the rampage.
Jesus, man. Yeah, I got one right now.
Do you? Yeah.
Don't get too close.
Yeah, I don't.
We hugged on Sunday. You might get it.
I hope not.
There's a picture of us hugging.
My whole family's been sick, so I know that's hilarious. Did you notice in the picture I'm standing on the curb?
Yes, and did you notice that our bellies pushed pushed us apart?
Yes, so true. It's like Weebles wobbling and they can't hug.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Did you like the music I picked? I
didn't hear it.
It was the Toy Story, like, you got a friend in me. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, all right. I shouldn't be singing.
That's okay.
All right. So this is a follow-on to episode 88 where we talked about whether or not the cost of electronic components was worth it.
Yes.
And we set off and we had a whole list of things to talk about. And
got halfway done.
We got halfway done.
We could talk for many episodes about this, but just a brief recap. We went over shifting systems. So SRAM, DI2, the old Access, the new transmission. Weren't really talking about like Garmin's or anything like that. We're just kind of talking about the pros and cons of the shifting systems.
Yep.
So
I think we talked about saddles as well, or seat posts as well.
Droppers. Yep. Yeah.
We pontificated if whether or not there was going to be electronic braking.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think we concluded
both
that
agreed. And then we got on big tangents about torques and I forgot what else. So I was listening to it and I was thinking, I actually enjoyed it because the torque conversations come up when we're training the guys all the time.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of ideas about that get misconceptions. I'd like to do a whole episode on misconceptions. Like,
oh yeah, we can do that.
People think.
Yeah, let us know if you think that'd be an interesting topic.
Yeah. So,
like putting your weight back when you're riding your bike.
No, I'm trying to think of one. Oh man,
like taking air out of your shock will make it totally plusher.
Well, so you close. Like low pressure tires have better traction.
Is that not true?
That's not necessarily true.
Oh, the kalam. I do not believe your words.
Yeah. So
I believe that low traction or less air has better traction.
It has to do with as you're going around corners and the tires squirm.
So you have to have enough to be supportive.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. So there's a balance between.
Yeah. People ask me all the time about that, and it's frustrating because I can't come up with the right answer because everybody's so different, and then how you ride is different,
and how much you weigh.
Yeah. I was slapping a berm, and I didn't have enough. I was at the pump track, so it's a concrete berm.
Yeah.
And I just went around it really hard.
Did you burp the tire?
Burped the tire, and it was because I didn't have enough pressure, and so that could have hurt my rim. Luckily, I had enough to not hurt my rim, but it almost blew the tire out.
All right, so we probably need to just take a minute and explain when I said burp the tire. What does that mean? What happens when that happens?
That's when usually on a tubeless, the tire kind of debeads. It gets pushed off of its bead seat, and a little bit of air and sealant can kind of come out the side. Yep. And sometimes the air pressure itself will pop it back on, and so you'll still be able to ride out, but you're now at a lower pressure.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. I burped a tire about a week ago in front of my house.
I burp after this Diet Pepsi every time I drink it.
So one thing we didn't get into was electronic suspension.
Yes, and so I wrote up notes. That's how
Holy
excited
shit.
I sat and did research. I got like numbers and things that I usually don't have, and just kind of I use generalization. This one is a little bit more accurate. Disclaimer: some of these. Facts may have changed because they've changed some of these systems. So, like, we're going to talk about Fox Live valve.
Yep. Is that Fox Neo? Is that the same thing?
That's what I was going to say is, so the older system is called just Fox Live valve, and that was still around. We have a bike in the shop right now with one, really cool system. And then we'll talk about Flight Attendant, and then we'll talk about Fox Neo, which is the
and Flight Attendant is SRAM's.
Is SRAM.
SRAM systems.
Yep. Yeah. And so I have them first on my notes, so we'll go through those. One thing I found out about Flight Attendant, so Flight Attendant is basically an electronic brain that controls your suspension.
So what does that mean, controls your suspension?
It's got little servos on it.
Okay. So is it just opening and closing the valves?
Yeah. In most cases, it's a low-speed compression adjustment, and it's opening and closing it, or sometimes putting it in a middle position. So like climb, trail, descend, which SRAM will be mad because that's a Fox term. But
I feel like we should probably back out a little bit before we dive into this and just give some context to our listeners. I also want to establish that I think that these systems are garbage and that we don't need them. So electronic suspension. Because I'm what would we say? I'm cheap. I'm a neophyte. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's a
Luddite.
Luddite.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Whole bunch of reasons why.
Yeah.
So I am not sold at all. So you're going to sell me today.
Yeah.
But before we start talking about low speed, high speed, compression, rebound stuff, let's go over what those things mean. So like, first of all, what is compression?
Compression is usually some sort of oil management as the oil's moving through the damper.
Before you describe it in the shock, describe what does it mean to the rider? Like
you're pushing down.
So compressing
the suspension
is when the fork is going down.
Yep. Yeah, it's compressed.
It's compressing. So when you adjust compression, you're adjusting what it feels like and how fast it goes down.
Exactly.
And then what's rebound?
Same thing, except opposite. It's how fast it comes back up. So the air spring is going to bring it up. If you don't have rebound, it's going to pop up really quick. If you have a lot of rebound, it's going to come up real slow.
Yep.
Just like the door, your screen door, the little thing that shuts it so it doesn't slam shut.
So compression is when the fork is going down. Rebounds when the fork is coming back out or coming up.
Yep.
And then I hear high speed, low speed. So what's the difference between high speed and low speed compression and rebound?
This is a whole episode on itself. It's crazy.
Well, we can give them a 30-second.
So the biggest thing that I tell people is compression. When people talk about high speed and low speed, it's really important to understand that it's the shaft of the compression damper, how fast it's moving, not the rider's speed. So is it high speed doesn't mean you're doing 30 miles an hour, and low speed doesn't mean you're doing 1 mile an hour. It's the suspension compression speed.
So I think of high speed as big drops.
Yeah.
And low speed as kind of small bump.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
perfect.
That's a good way. And that's both on rebound and compression?
On some forks or suspension.
I'm saying the concepts are the same.
Yeah. You can separate if the manufacturer has separated those two adjustments.
Right.
So you can have a compression adjustment, which means that you can change how fast it compresses and how slow it compresses.
Right.
And then you can separate that and have it using valving and just ports and moving oil through the shock at different ways. You can separate it to where it is activated at different speeds. And that's high speed and low speed separation. And so higher end dampers will have a high speed and low speed separation.
Yep.
And usually they're just, you're compressing the fork and it is trying to adjust low speed in most cases. Yep. And then it's pushing past that and hitting high speed if it's really fast. Companies will do it different ways, but it's basically the gist.
Right. So compression pushing down, rebound coming back.
Yep.
And high speed is for small bump. I'm sorry, high speed's for big drops.
It's high speed shaft movement. And the reason that's important is because if you go into a rock garden fast, actually, and you hit those square edged bumps fast,
it'll move fast.
It'll have a lot. It could activate the high speed circuit.
Got it.
And then, I like low speed for me is, when you're in the bike shop and you're pushing down on the fork, that's what you're feeling. You're feeling low speed. And if you were to crank the high speed, it usually is harder to detect.
Until you go take a 5-foot drop or something, or hit a rock garden at 30 miles an hour.
And this is also why, lower end forks tend to just have a low speed compression adjustment and not separate them. And because they don't feel that rider is ready yet to try and differentiate.
Right.
And
I have a Grip 2 and I still don't know that I'm taking advantage of all of the features that has. And I'm super happy with my Grip damper.
The amount of people that will buy a new damper from me and get a Grip 2 and I don't think they actually know how to use it is pretty common. But I don't discount the fact that somebody just wants the ability to learn. And if you don't have the separation, you can't figure it out.
Like that 3.1 you just put in my Zeb.
Yep.
I don't know what I'm doing with it. All right. So I just wanted to set that baseline first, that I'm a skeptic of this, so you can convince me that I'm wrong. And then also I just wanted to make sure our listeners kind of understand, because you're going to talk about low speed, high speed compression, all that stuff. So they kind of know what it is you're talking about.
Well, a good baseline is that almost everything that we're going to talk about electronics is adjusting the compression.
Okay.
And so the electronics are kind of taking over the job of you turning the knobs.
Okay.
And their job is to do it, but we've had electronic lockouts and remote lockouts for a long time where you can do it from the handlebar. But this is a new level where they put a brain somewhere on the bike, whether it's attached to the suspension or it's separate on the bike. And then there's sensors that actually are sensing the ground as you ride it.
And this is different than like Specialized had their brain system like a long time ago, and that was a mechanical system.
Yeah, that's a great, I didn't even think about that, but that's great, something to touch on. So the Specialized brain concept was actually developed by Fox, believe it or not, for what's called a Terralogic fork way back. And
I remember those.
Yeah. I have a bunch of the cartridges still. So if you ever want to make a Terralogic, just give me a call. But they use a weighted system, and basically this brass weight was covering a hole where the oil could go through, and it was on a spring. And if the suspension moved a certain way, that brass weight would move away and unblock the port and allow the fork to move, and then the spring would return it. And then they would start tuning the spring on how fast it would come back, so you could change how long it stayed open. It was a really cool concept. It really, honestly, it was really awesome, but it had some limitations, and even Specialized is kind of going away from that because
I don't think even any of their 2024 bikes had the brain in it anymore.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think some of their race epics and stuff in the fork still. Okay. Because I've debrained them. So we take the brains out. No
Lobotomy.
Joke, you lobotomize them. Yeah. No joke. We call it that. But it was a cool concept. It's got some limitations, and probably the biggest one is that because it's mechanical, it's not really thinking, so it's kind of dumb, and you can fool it. And usually it is hitting a bump before it reacts, and it doesn't react as fast as the electronic system, so you would have kind of a harsher ride. So,
okay, so that was the Fred Flintstone era.
Yep.
The brain, and now we're in the Jetson era of electronics. So talk us through like what these different things are, how much they cost, all that stuff.
So Flight Attendant is the SRAM version. Came out, I didn't know this, but it's been in development for 9 years. I had no idea. It's a long time.
I thought you were telling me that SRAM like turns stuff over every 12 months.
That's why that was serious. That's why it was surprising. So I do remember when it first came out, it was really specific to the bike. So like there was only like 4 or 5 brands that had it. You couldn't get it on anything. But when Flight Attendant came out, it was wireless. And that's, we're skipping ahead because that's first on my sheet. Fox Live kind of came out a little sooner
than Flight Attendant.
But Flight Attendant, like SRAM, already had the wireless protocol, so they could already make it wireless, which was a great.
So will Flight Attendant work on a typical like Lyric or Zeb SRAM product? Yeah. So
when it first came out, they were really touchy about what it went on. It was on specific bikes. It was bikes they tested. It did okay, but it didn't really take off because it wasn't really an aftermarket option.
Right.
And then they changed it. They figured out they could add other sensors that are already on the bike, and they could get them to talk to it and get more out of it and make it predictive, which is really nice.
Okay.
And so they started integrating it in with their power meters, which now tells the flight attendant, so I should tell you about what sensors it uses. So
are these optical sensors? Like, are they looking at the trail ahead of you?
No. Okay. God, that would be cool.
That's the next gen?
Yeah, that would be awesome. It'd look like those self-driving cars where you have that big nodule on your head, like on your helmet or something, where you're walking around and everybody wants to get in selfies behind you as you go down the trail.
You can use a large language model, load the trail up. It can know exactly where all the rocks are. And
my God.
Tune the air pressure.
That's coming.
We should probably be quiet. And we should take this and patent this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But usually they'll use accelerometers and position sensors. I think the accelerometers are just basically their bump sensors, and basically it will hit a bump, and within fractions of a millisecond, 14 milliseconds, I think is what they were saying.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, like really, really quick. It will send signals to the brain, which will analyze what is coming in at, and then it will change the suspension settings. But they've also put the sensors on the front and the back of the bike and in the power meter on Flight Attendant. And that allows them to actually know pitch of the bike.
So the power meter, like in the pedals, like power meter pedals?
So you can get a couple different types of power meters on your bikes nowadays from SRAM. And when you hook the power meter to the bike and you hook up your Flight Attendant with your transmission drivetrain, which is wireless, you can link all of them and sync all of them together. And now your suspension not only knows when it's hitting a bump, but it knows what angle you're at. It knows how much power you're putting and whether or not you're hard pedaling or soft pedaling or coasting. It knows whether or not your weight bias is different. Power, there's one other one. Angle. So when I calibrate my bike, I have to tilt it to tell it which side it's tilting.
Right.
So if it's going around a corner or what have you, and that way it knows, basically what's right and what's left.
Oh, interesting.
So they're crazy. It knows all this stuff, and then you link it to your drivetrain, and it now knows what gear you're in. So it knows what gear you're in. From what I hear, this hasn't happened yet, but I believe they're trying to develop it so it actually knows what's going on with your dropper too. So then it'll know if your seat's up or down. And so now your brain, they call it adaptive, I believe is the term. And the adaptive system can now use all that info to adjust your suspension and kind of predict and learn how you ride and adjust the suspension accordingly.
Does it learn over time?
Yes.
And it remembers that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you give it feedback like thumbs up and thumbs down?
That I haven't seen yet.
Okay.
You can fine tune it. So it has a really nice app.
Right.
And you can go into the app and you can fine tune it. You can change it through LEDs on the brain, which is usually the fork portion. And the brain will talk to the rear shock, but you can adjust it through LEDs and change compression settings. So you can fine tune it. You can kind of make it biased to be more open or biased to be more closed.
So this is really just adjusting low and high speed compression.
Yes, yeah. For the most part, low speed.
Okay.
It's not really doing much on the high speed side.
Okay.
It's really kind of one adjustment. So I would say that's the biggest drawback. So like I went through my pros and cons. So on Flight Attendant, for instance, I was trying to get costs for this stuff, and it's kind of hard.
Right. What is the cost?
Cost it's variable on how many things you add to it. But just the suspension with a power meter is around $2,000 to $3,000, depending on which suspension you get.
But you're paying $500 to $1,000 just for the power.
So yeah, $200 to $300 for some of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Or a pedal sensor.
Okay.
Not necessarily a power meter. So that's the other thing is with Flight Attendant, you can back it off to whatever level you want.
Right.
The basics are you need the fork, the shock, and a cadence sensor, which is usually put into the crank to know that it's spinning. And interesting note, when I got mine, so SRAM got me a set to test out, and I've been testing this. I had my carbon cranks on my Altitude.
Which bike do you have this on?
On my Altitude.
Your Altitude,
yeah.
okay.
So it's got a Zeb with Flight Attendant and a Super Deluxe Ultimate on the rear.
Okay.
So, and one of the reasons I wanted you to get the Buttercups is because the Zeb has the Buttercups, and they are amazing.
It's so awesome.
Yeah.
I love that fork.
And if you don't know what Buttercups are,
well, let's tell them.
well, they are like engine mounts for your fork. I don't know how to explain it, but basically they're isolators that are little rubber suspension that's built into the end of the damper rods that attach to your lowers so that your fork is kind of riding on engine mounts. So you get this little bit of suspension separate from the air spring.
And what I would say, like in practice, like what I feel when I'm riding is it kind of takes the edge off the small bumps.
Yep,
and
exactly.
I think the perfect example, I was doing a ride last week and I came out on a dirt road that was like washboard. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was hauling ass on this washboard road, and usually it's like rattling my brain.
Yep. Yeah.
And it really took, 50 or 75% of the fucking rattle out of it. They're just real small washboards.
Yeah, vibration. Yeah, it just gets rid of that.
It was great.
That feedback, that road feedback.
But these Buttercups, these are mechanical. This has nothing to do with electronic. Yeah. We're just talking about those in the
that's a Rockshox thing.
In the Rockshox fork.
So anyway, the cost, So then I'm putting it on my altitude, and I got the cadence sensor, which goes in the crank. And I didn't buy new cranks. I have my Truvative Descendant carbon cranks that I've had for 5 years that I love on my bike, and I stuck them right in there, went and rode, and I couldn't get it to work. And the thing wouldn't work. And I'm like playing with it. I'm pulling out the app. I'm doing everything, and it just is not telling me.
Dane's always playing with it, by the way.
I'll tell you what, usually I get results when I play with it. At this point, I had to call in a friend to help me play with it. You started.
I did. Fair enough.
So I did call a buddy, and he's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. He actually goes, hey, I'll be in there next week.
This is your friend from SRAM?
From SRAM, yeah. And we'll figure it out. And so he couldn't figure it out, and we're trying to figure it out. He's trying to call tech support. We go on a ride. What we figured out was my old cranks had the big hole that you stick this cadence sensor in on one side, and the new dub cranks that it was designed for have the big hole on the other. And this thing's so sensitive, it knows if you're going backwards or forwards. So I had it in backwards.
Oh, funny.
So we cranked the cranks backwards, and the system came on and knew what was going on. And so we figured it out.
So did you put new cranks on?
Yep. I actually switched out to some newer transmission cranks.
Right on.
And that took care of it. And it's worked pretty much flawless since, other than if I forget to charge the battery.
How long does it last?
They say probably 24 hours nonstop. It's hard for me because I'll let it sit in the garage for a week, and I'll ride it once or twice, and then I'll forget how many times I've charged it. I can get 4 or 5 rides without even thinking about it. The cool thing is when I forget to do it, it just stays open. So it's just a regular
Just
fork.
like your regular fork.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's not like
it doesn't stay locked where it is unrideable. And so there's very low penalty. I don't get the automatic suspension. That's it, and so, so it's been pretty cool. I did put this, so we're talking a 38 millimeter Zeb fork at 170 mils travel.
Right.
And a Super Deluxe at 230 millimeter eye to eye with, I forgot, 65, I think is my stroke. It's long.
Yep.
So 165 millimeter rear and 170 mil front enduro bike.
Right.
And I go ride that system with my daughter on cross country trails, and I can hear the suspension changing, and you hear the little motors going. They sound like the derailleurs, little,
little servos.
And it's just constantly adjusting. It'll go from open to trail to closed, constantly. And it is really cool. As I'm going up a hill, it knows I'm going up, and it'll adjust for that. And then when I'm going down, it'll open wide up, and it's pretty noticeable. And it's gotten to where I really kind of appreciate the sound, of the motors.
Yeah.
I've heard some people complain that there's a noise. For me, it's like, my stuff that I spent a lot of money on works.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with that.
And you get that validation that it's actually working.
Yeah, that it's actually
but
doing
it's not
something.
loud and annoying. It's just.
No, you just hear it, working. I have a buddy who's got a silent hub, and he absolutely loves a silent hub, and he may not like this, and there's people that come in and they hear a little creak 2 or 3 times on their ride, and it drives them insane. They may not like it.
I need my bike to make noises so I can drown out the sound of me wheezing.
Yeah, it's true.
Trying to get up the hill.
It's true. Yeah. Whether or not you hear it depends on your lung capacity.
You're right.
But,
so it's $2,000 to $3,000.
Yeah. So
this does not include the cost of the fork.
No. This is the fork and the rear shock and the cadence sensor.
Okay.
And then the reason it's 2 to 3 is because I don't think that includes the power meter.
Okay. So just for comparative, if it's $2,000 to $3,000, what would it be for a suspension system without this?
So if you buy a Zeb Ultimate, it's around $1,100, and a Zeb Super Deluxe Ultimate is around $600.
Right.
So you're talking $1,700, and then you can get this stuff from $2,000 to $3,000.
So it's not
crazy.
Yeah, it's not significantly more.
Yeah. Now it's also $2,000 to $3,000 because it may depend on which model you get. So I have another system that's going to go on one of my bikes that's a Lyric. It's a different fork, and then
Lyric's a 35
millimeter.
35 millimeter.
Yeah, long travel. And that one we're going to do a custom build on. So they make a Vivid Ultimate.
That's the rear
Vivid
shock.
coil.
Oh, it's a coil.
Well, they do make it, but they weren't available. And so I talked to SRAM, and we're going to do a custom super deluxe coil. So we're going to make this shock. So I'm going to use their flight attendant unit and install it on a standard super deluxe ultimate. And so we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
But it was fun because I got to call Colorado Springs and talk to Double D at SRAM, and he's a super cool guy. And kind of work through the details and kind of make sure before I buy all this stuff that it'll bolt up. And so it's an experiment. We'll see how it goes.
So weight wise, what am I adding to my bike when I add this electronic system?
That is a great one. So around 300 grams, I think.
3/4 of a pound?
Yeah, 3/4. And that would be, again, the info was hard to determine what exactly that was, but that should be the pedal sensor, and both brains and batteries, on them. Cause they each thing has a battery. So that is one thing to know about flight attendant. You have a battery on the fork, and now you have a battery on the rear shock, and you have a battery in the cadence sensor.
Jesus, that's a lot of batteries.
Yeah, so lots. And then, of course, you have batteries if you have your transmission. So you got batteries all over if you got a full
You got like 5 pounds of batteries on there.
Pretty much, yeah. So a little bit more weight than I expected, but it's not crazy. So the other thing is that since this stuff's wireless, it's aftermarket compatible, which means you can put it on. So I basically told SRAM, I go, here's the eye-to-eye on the stroke that I need, and I was able to get a shock. And then I told them what type of fork, and I was able to get that. You can get a SID with this stuff on it, and a short travel rear shock.
Yep.
You can get a lot of different versions available. They're not everything is available, but for the most part, you can fit it. It is not a bad idea to maybe just get some help from somebody who knows what they're doing, just because the brain system does stick out a little bit, and you want to make sure it's going to clear, like on the rear.
If you're turning,
that it's not going to hit something. And on the fork, it hangs off the back, and it's aluminum, so it's pretty durable. But I've seen some bikes where they actually have bumpers, so if that fork comes around, it hits. So you want to be careful that you're not just throwing it on something and then ruining it.
So like for this system in particular, one of the things I've heard is that it's like more applicable for XC use than it is for trail or enduro or downhill. Do you feel the same way?
So two things that I noticed about it is because it only is affecting the low speed compression, I don't get to get the advantage of setting up two different scenarios for when I'm riding. So when I'm racing downhill bikes and I hit a rock garden at speed, I'm really looking at that high speed, or if I'm doing a drop or a big jump where I may take a big fast impact on the fork, I kind of want to set up for that. But my low speed is the chunder and keeping me stuck to the ground. And so low speed also can help me with brake jack, or, if you put the brakes on and the fork dives, your low speed can help you with that. And so I like the ability to have those two separations. And it's kind of important to have that ability on at a race level. And so the bigger hit bikes, it's harder to justify. I know SRAM will probably get mad at me for saying that because it's top of the line stuff.
Yeah.
But I think like on a downhill bike or an enduro race bike, I don't know if I would be...
The juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be that worth it. Now, on the cross-country race bikes, I think is...
100% worth it.
Flight attendant on cross-country, where that thing is controlling your suspension. You don't have to think about it while you're trying to put out 110% to make it around as fast as possible. You're not trying to hit a lockout or forgetting to hit a lockout to unlock it. It's basically keeping your bike as efficient as possible with the minimal to zero effort from the rider. I think that is by far a cross-country application for it. The other application that I found out with my altitude that I was really impressed with is it gave my altitude two distinct personalities. I can go ride it on a cross-country trail with my daughter, and it was super efficient, easy to ride. It made a big pillowy bike that I do huge jumps on, and it made it cross-country rideable. And then I can either leave it wide open, or I can set the bias to be open more often, and I can go hit big trails. So if I only owned one bike and I really had that really different type of ride, that two different opposing types of rides,
right?
it would be a good compromise, and it would be cheaper than 2 bikes.
And if you had it on there and you wanted to go do, enduro race or something like that,
it still works great.
You could just not run it.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, right? Yeah, turn it off.
You can turn it off, but it still works great.
Yeah.
And what it's going to do is just make you more efficient between
on the uphill.
Yeah, on the uphills in your transfers. So
you still set your rebound and your air pressure.
Yep.
The same way you would set your sag and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's really just dorking with the low speed compression.
Yep. It's really just a little monkey on there turning it on and off for you. And it's a smart monkey. It knows what it's doing.
Okay.
So,
right on.
So that's Flight Attendant. So here's my pros. You want to hear what I wrote?
Yeah, go for it.
Makes worse pedaling bikes do better. Offers an automatic lockout for racing. Can be used to make long travel bikes more versatile for XC applications or XC bikes faster.
So does it make a difference if the bike geometry is more linear or progressive in their suspension kinematics?
It uses the same shim stack, from what I understand, as the standard stuff. So you can custom tune it if you need to.
Okay,
which is cool. So then you can kind of address that. Now, if you have a bike that's really just better with coil, you want to try and get the coil version,
right?
But air, they have air already. So. And then the air can is still the same can, so you can put in volume spacers and tune it that way too.
Okay.
So it still has so much versatility of the standard Ultimate.
Doesn't take anything away from the suspension products. It just
really.
adds a new feature.
Yeah, I would say just a little bit of the high speed, low speed separation. That's about it.
Can you still manually adjust your compression if you wanted to?
You can press buttons.
Okay.
And do it through the brain.
Okay.
But there's no
like tactile knob.
Yeah. I'm trying to make sure that I'm correct on that. Yeah. Because on Fox Live Valve there still is manual adjustment.
Well, that's a good transition. Let's talk about Fox.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. You didn't finish your pros and cons.
My cons still has a harsher feel. Much better with buttercups. Cost is high. Charging batteries, not all configurations for all bikes, and only integrates with SRAM e-bike. That's kind of a weird one because that's really more the transmission and stuff.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure how Flight Attendant integrates with the SRAM. Oh, yeah, I am. Sorry. So I got one of these systems. That Lyric system I was talking about was for one of my e-bikes. And then we found out after the fact that it does not talk to Bosch, which is what the e-bike I have.
Okay.
And so what...
Does it matter?
Well, because I wanted to use the power. So
instead of putting a power meter on the pedals, you wanted to get the power rating from the actual Bosch e-motor.
From the Bosch e-motor. And so it did not talk to it. And because it's a Bosch motor, there's no space for that cadence sensor. So I don't know if they have a way to fix that, but it basically killed that suspension for that bike, and that suspension's getting moved to a non-e-bike. Now I know that my rep didn't realize that when he told me about it. And so he was surprised and they're still figuring that out. And I think it's something they're working on, but again, that's SRAM trying to write software that then works with Bosch, and then Bosch cooperating. That takes a lot more time than if you just had a SRAM e-bike motor. They wrote everything so they can make it work. Right. So, all right. So Fox Live Valve. So we're going to talk about the old Fox Live Valve. So this is I hate to say old, but there was 2 old versions. There was a non-Bluetooth and a Bluetooth version. Okay. And then was the non-Bluetooth a wired version? Well, they're both wired. Uh-oh. Yeah. So these are the old. Again, we're not going to talking about Neo yet, which is the newest stuff. This stuff came out because we're a Pivot dealer. We saw it on Pivot, and I tested on Pivot. God, lots of years ago. I mean, it's been out for a while.
Like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or what do you think?
At least probably 5. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I remember it was on a 5.5 Pivot. I took it to North Star and I rode it and I tried to fool it. So the premise on this is it has a sensor on the fork. It has a solenoid, just like the Flight Attendant on the fork, compression damper. And then the rear shock has a solenoid. And then it has a sensor on the rear wheel. And then it has a sensor in the brain, which is usually mounted somewhere in the middle of the bike. And so it's got these sensors that allow for it, again, to know pitch. So it knows if you're going uphill or downhill. And it's more, it is more sensitive to the uphill and the downhill than I think Flight Attendant is. And will do a lot more depending on that. It'll change the settings of the front and the rear, and it doesn't always do the same setting on both.
And again, this is just a compression setting?
Just compression. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. You still set your sag up. You still have rebound adjustments. Fox Live is a little different because they do have compression adjustable. So you can manually adjust your compression or fine tune it is what they say.
Okay.
So it's like fine tuning. Now, here's the big difference. So Flight Attendant, and I don't know if I mentioned this or made it clear, but Flight Attendant, when you're riding it, is defaulting open, which means that it is squishy until it decides to shut. Yep. So as you point uphill and start pedaling hard, it goes, oh, it's smooth enough and they're going uphill and working at it. We're going to lock out. So
they learned their lesson from the old brain.
Fox Live is the opposite.
It's default closed.
Default closed. And when you hit an obstacle, the front sensor picks it up and within milliseconds changes the fork and the rear shock settings and then has a certain time that it allows for that to stay open before it shuts again.
As long as it's not feeling any additional bumps. So if you're going through a rock garden, it'll stay that clock is constantly resetting.
Yeah. And on the brains of these, you can adjust the sensitivity. Usually they have about 5 different levels. And the newer Fox Live wire, you can do Bluetooth and they have an app. So I think you can do even more fine tuning with that.
Okay.
The bikes that we sold at Pivot, they didn't have the Bluetooth brains on them. So we didn't get to play with that too much.
Didn't play with the app too much.
But the
we already established that you like to play with it.
I do like to play with it. Sometimes I need help. So, but so the Fox Live system is wired, and that's probably, I would say, the number one drawback to it.
Are they still selling the Fox Live system wired?
Not really. So I will tell you that I've talked to Fox Live about this stuff, and they consider this like their baby, their pride and joy, and they still support it, and they still feel like it is the best thing in the world. And anybody who has this, they want to take care of them like gold. So that's the attitude I get from Fox anytime I have a question on Live Valve. So they've made that really clear. So if you do have a Fox Live Valve wired,
still supported.
You're not getting left out in the cold. So this system was around $2,000 upgrade on bikes for pivots, and if you bought it around $3,000 to $3,500 depending. Again, depending on what level of suspension, how much it costs.
And does it work? Did it work, or will it work on a Fox 36, Fox float rear? I mean, is there specific?
So you would usually put it on. It would usually come with the fork.
Okay.
And again, not really an aftermarket.
So that $3,000 to $3,500 includes the fork and the shock itself. It's not just the electronics.
I wanted to put prices that kind of had the forks too.
The full thing. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Now, like the upcharge that Pivot was doing, you were already getting Fox factory, so it was $2,000 extra.
So we're talking about we said it was $2,000 to $3,000 for the live valve. Yep. I'm sorry, for the flight attendant.
Yeah.
And that was compared to like $1,700 for like an all acoustic. What's the comparable? What's the non-electronic cost for a Fox factory setup?
So it would be around $1,500 to $1,700.
So roughly the same price.
Yeah, yeah.
But more expensive.
Yep.
The Fox product more expensive than flight attendant.
Yeah, it is. And it had more to it. It had a brain. So here's the big thing is flight attendant, even though it came out originally just with a few brands, I think there was 4. They are now figured out that it will adapt and it can go on most bikes. You know, there's a caveat that not every bike, but it can go on most bikes. Fox Live, you need internal routing and special mounts to have that. So you need to have a certain mount in the back of the bike where you can run wires, to the back for the rear sensor. And then you need a place to put the brain, a mount for that. And different companies do that in different ways. And then you need wiring ports so that the wires can get from the brain out to the suspension. So you can't really do it aftermarket unless the bike is already piped for it.
Okay.
And so that is a big drawback. And I think Fox knew that, but I saw Fox Live on a lot more bikes than I saw Flight Attendant.
Okay.
So now that could be because we sold Pivot and they did them and Rocky Mountain did them. But, Giant did Flight Attendant. And I think I've seen like 3 in the wild.
Right. All right.
So Fox Live adjustments, external adjustments, shop serviceable, which is important to me. And
flight attendant shop serviceable or no?
Yes, for the most part. So when I say serviceable, that means we can usually rebuild the dampers, air systems, all the normal stuff. If your motor isn't working correctly, then
that's a warranty product.
That's a warranty or a new part or something. So interesting, it said that Fox Live Valve only added around 150 grams to a traditional double cable lockout system, which means a remote cable system. So maybe
it's probably the same weight.
Yeah, it's probably close to,
because that's about 150 grams between all the cables,
housing and the lever. So
about the same weight.
Yeah, they were comparing it on like a Scott bike, which has got that big old
honking mess.
Yeah. So there's no pedal sensor, so that it did not use data from your cranks or power or anything like that. And you do have to calibrate both of these systems, which means they have to know which way is up. So with Fox, you calibrate it by putting it on a level ground and letting it know what level is. And with RockShox, you tilt it, level ground and tilt it so that it knows which way drives. I think it's drive side. I can't remember. So let's see. So low speed adjustments. So same there.
Yep.
And then I would say the Fox Live was a little quicker. So the suspension
the reaction was quicker?
Reaction was a little faster. So it's difficult because you have two generations of Flight Attendant. The initial generation, which really didn't take off.
Right.
And the engineers, I think, had to go through and kind of reprogram and kind of fine tune.
Right.
And then you have the Fox Live generation, which was pretty much it, and the only thing they changed for the most part was Bluetooth to allow you to use an app.
And is that Neo?
No, we're still talking about wired.
Okay.
So, but the general consensus from our customers and people I've talked to and myself is that the Fox Live system was a little faster to react.
Okay.
So, and it was pretty instantaneous. You know, even though it is using a sensor on the fork and feeling the wheel move up before it unlocks, it was so fast that it was just crazy.
Could you hear it as well, the same way you could hear it?
Yeah, it makes a little clicking noise, not as noticeable
as the flight attendant
while you're riding, but it does make a clicking noise. There's a cool video I saw where these guys are like kind of just holding it in the air, and then they tilt the bike down, like downhill, and you can hear it click, and then you tilt it up, and then you can hear it click, and then they shake it, and here's both of them click. So it was kind of cool because you can actually hear them working. So. Let's see. My notes on the Fox Live wired is it knows the pitch front and back, which is great. Front and rear sensors, which was a little more accurate. You can adjust the suspension without bumps. I don't know what. Oh, the sensors to adjust the suspension without bumps. So what it does is, normally, like on the old Brain Shocks, is you had to hit something to activate it, and then it had to delay open. Fox is a little similar to that, except it also uses the pitch of the bike. So if you're going uphill, it's going to bias towards closed. Yep. And as you point downhill, the other thing is it has accelerometers in it, so it knows when you're free falling. And I tested that at North Star. I went and did the drop zone at North Star and did all the drops, and every single one, even the big one, which had me hanging in the air quite a while, still it was open when I hit the ground.
Oh, wow.
So I could not fool it. So
that's good. That would have been bad if you had hit the ground and it had been closed.
Yeah. It was banned for the shock and probably my wrists and ankles. But yeah, I was pretty impressed because I actively tried to fool it and I couldn't.
Right.
So, now of something to note on Fox Live is that the Fox pretty much sets it up at the factory, and they usually work with the OEM to do that. And one of the things that I would tell you is that Fox Live would normally always be considered a cross-country race setup.
Okay.
Until Pivot started putting it on their Firebirds.
Which is their like a big
enduro, big
enduro bike.
Yeah, mini downhill bike. It's a big travel bike. And
so it's a bike. It's like a downhill bike with a single crown, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I rode it, and what Pivot did was they worked close with Fox. They tuned the Fox Live to not have a closed circuit. What they had was, they explained it to me like it's kind of like when it's closed, it's not closed. It's basically like a standard suspension. And then when it opens, it's like super plush.
Okay.
And so what it was doing was giving you the same ride quality as a normal Firebird. But when you pointed it downhill and it knew you were hitting stuff, it opened up and made pillow mode.
Okay.
So their efficient pedaling platform was great, and it stayed that way.
Yep.
And it was so good that they didn't need to lock out the suspension. What they really did was use it in the opposite way, which was to make the suspension even softer.
Right.
Which was crazy. It kind of blew my mind.
Okay, that makes sense. So they basically changed the baseline of the starting point.
Yep, exactly. Right? Yeah. And
because the Firebird itself, or basically all pivot bikes are like so efficient to pedal.
Yep. Yeah.
You didn't need the closed circuit, or you didn't need it to be biased to closed.
No. And if that could foreshadow the future, I would tell you that right there, that collaboration, I think Fox learns just as much when they collaborate with bike companies as the bike companies do.
Absolutely.
I think that kind of taught them something too, because that really made that bike. It made sense. You know, it wasn't like, hey, let's stick this stuff on and try and sell some wires. It was like, hey, how can we make this bike better? And making it an automatic lockout didn't make any sense.
Right.
So not on a Firebird. And I was really impressed because that was really a good application of that. I rode, not to dog SRAM, but I rode the Rockshox Flight Attendant on some of the early stuff on some Giant bikes. And Giant, in my opinion, keep in mind people will argue with me, are not very efficient pedalers. Their Maestro system isn't as efficient as what I'm used to. And I was really disappointed because the bike just kind of had like a Jekyll and Hyde personality.
Have you ridden a recent Giant?
That was probably 3 years ago.
Yeah, you got to try one of the new ones. They've put a lot of work into it.
I don't know, man. This was one of the new ones, but I'm not going to dog on them too much because what happens is you get a taste for a style.
Right.
And then you kind of like that style. And then when you have something different, which could be better or worse, it doesn't matter. It's just different and you just notice the difference.
You know how you can feel like you're on a bike versus in a bike?
Yeah. Yeah.
On the Giants, I always feel like I'm on the bike.
On top.
And every other bike I have, I feel like I'm in the bike. I don't know if that makes sense, but like.
Yeah. Now, which do you prefer?
In the bike.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to feel tippy. So, yeah. But you know, people love Giant. They do a great job. They're a great company. I don't want to dog on them. I'm used to a certain type of pedal platform. And when you switch, it's shocking.
Yep.
So back to Fox Live. My pros were the pitch, you can fine tune, which is great. Longer battery life, although you had wires. And then of course the cons are the cost, obviously. Need a bike built for it. So you can't just put it on anything. And the wiring harness is a nightmare. I've had to swap out a few, and they are time consuming. It's bad.
Okay.
Because you've got to wire this thing all the way.
Are they internally routed?
Internally routed.
Oh, Jesus.
All over the place with these random ports. And most companies, I think, do a good job, but I could see, you know, some companies that don't keep their QC as high as some of the ones we deal with having a nightmare of it. So, but even the ones that we've dealt with were pretty hard. Okay, so now we come to more current Fox.
Yep.
Fox Neo.
When did Neo come out? Like last year?
Yeah, it just came out. I mean, last year in 2024, I guess.
Yeah.
So but it feels like 6 months. You know?
Okay.
So maybe less. So, so cost on Neo is about $1,400, and you have to buy everything modular. Now here's the crazy part of Fox Neo. It is just a rear shock. That's it. So you get two sensors, one for the front and one for the rear. And you get a rear shock, and then you get a charger, and that's it.
So there's nothing on the fork?
There's nothing on the fork.
Okay.
And they do make a coil. Most of them are built off of either a coil, DHX format, or a Float X format.
Okay.
I guess some of the commenters were upset that they weren't on X2s and stuff, and it had to do with how the valving works and twin tubes and getting the electronics to fit on them. So I have no doubt that they'll come out with other things, but they didn't want to redesign the shock. They were able to put this Neo on existing, with minimal redesign. So, they've been testing it for a while. We've been seeing stuff on World Cup pits and stuff and spy photos for a while. Nico
Malili?
Yeah. God, I can never remember how to pronounce his last name. He's been testing it for a while. So, and he's liking it too. So, it's really cool. Here's the big thing is, right now we've got Flight Attendant out there. And I would say if I was going to ride a cross country bike and I wanted that thing to be the most efficient race weapon that I could have, Flight Attendant is the right choice. You want that
more than the old Fox Live.
Yeah. And it's also a great choice if you want a big hit, if you want one bike and you want to have two completely different personalities. You know, I think it can really help you with that. And it's cheaper than two bikes. So, Flight Attendant's done a good job of covering, but I don't think you're going to see Flight Attendant floating on the downhill bikes or the super enduros. We'll see, you know. The thing that I always have to remember about sponsored racers is that they're paid, you know, and so
they use what the companies give them.
Yeah. You know, if you watch the privateers, you know, the guys that have to buy their own stuff, that'll give you a little bit better idea of what is good stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Cause they're only going to buy the stuff that works the best.
Yes, exactly. And so Neo is really, gravity focused. So Fox really doesn't feel like they need to do anything with the fork. They want that fork to move. They want it to move over stuff. And it's not necessarily built for somebody who's going to stand and sprint and doesn't want the front to dive, like a cross-country racer.
Yep.
It's really trail-orientated or downhill-orientated, and you're not really wanting that fork to have any interruption. You don't want to have that low-speed only option. You want a high-speed and low-speed separation for your compression. So it allows you to run your fork as a normal fork. But they put the sensor right on the brake because they want that sensor to be, these sensors have their own coin batteries in them and they're wireless. So which is obviously, if I didn't say that before, the new Neo is wireless. So no more wires, fits on almost anything as long as the shock's being made for it. And I don't see any reason why they couldn't pretty much fit everything out there that's current.
Okay.
So if you've got like an old, like, you know, non-metric rear shock on a bike that can't take anything else, you may be out of luck, but everything current they're making it for. On the bigger hit side, I don't think there's any short ones. So,
okay.
And then, wireless, sensors on the front brake and the rear brake, and they will know
like where on the brake, are they on the caliper, on the piston or on the rotors?
You mount it right under the brake bolt. So it's got like this little wing that kind of sticks out and it's tucked enough to where it's not going to get just sheared off with every ride.
Yeah.
But it's kind of under the brake, so it doesn't interrupt your braking. It doesn't interrupt your brake setup. You don't have to respace anything. It just goes on under the bolt, think like a flat washer with a little, like an L bracket, and it's got a little sensor.
Gotcha.
On it. So that sensor is down there at the unsprung weight. At the wheel, at the axle.
You're going to have to explain unsprung weight for our listeners.
So, unsprung weight unsprung position is one that's just moving at the same undulation with the trail.
It's not impacted by the body weight.
Well, yeah.
Because sprung is like when I sit on my bike, like everything that's getting impacted by my body weight is sprung, and everything that's not is unsprung. So
sprung weight is being affected by the suspension. Unsprung isn't. Yep. And so the unsprung weight is literally taking every jar and every movement that the ground gives you.
Gotcha.
Whereas your handlebars aren't. So you can't put the sensor on your handlebars or on the front of the bike or anything like that. It's got to be on the ground, so it's sensing the ground as much as possible.
Right. Gotcha.
So one on the front, one on the back. That helps it know, you know, what pitch you're at. And you know, its first edition is aftermarket, so they weren't like a OE spec, but you can get it on a lot of OE bikes. I know Pivot's offering it on a lot of their bikes. It's 20-ish hours on the rear shock.
Battery life,
and it's rechargeable. And then there's coin batteries in the sensors on the wheels, and they're longer. Yeah. So let's see. It does need an app to work, so which means to set it up and to deal with it, you need the app. You can do some like cool things with the app, like you can change the colors and the LEDs that come on to turn them on or off or dim them so that you don't use extra battery power. So if you're doing a long weekend or something like that, you don't run out of battery.
Yep.
So let's see, it's definitely more trail orientated and downhill, and the default is closed. So it's not pedal power. God, I feel like that's wrong, but I think that's right. So the default is closed and then it opens up when the front fork hits something.
I mean, that would make sense because that's what their live valve was, right? So
Yeah.
continuing that kind of same concept.
The difference is that even on their old live valve, the front fork, even if it was locked out, had enough give to where you didn't feel like super rough.
Right.
But the rear shock was always open way before the bump got to the tire. That's how fast the system moved. And so, in other words, by the time the sensor in the front has sensed the bump, the rear shock will already be open.
Which is impacting the back of the bike.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And so, so the default is closed but it knows pitch and impact. So, and then it's not pedal, bias. So it doesn't know how much power you're putting down or how much you're pedaling. So again, trail and downhill makes sense. It's really not worried if you're coasting or if you're soft pedaling or sprinting through a section. It's not doing that. It's really sensing the trail only. So a cool system, I think, because I'm a gravity guy, I like that one better because it makes more sense for me. However, I got to tell you, the Flight Attendant is really surprising me on how versatile it's making a big travel bike.
Right.
And then we've got a couple customers out on the Mach 4 SLs with Flight Attendant. And these are power meter equipped bikes with the full transmission drivetrain. And they're metric people. They love numbers, and they're getting all of this data. So
that was going to be my question. Like, are these systems collecting telemetry data as well?
They are. I'm not sure how much they get, but the app will,
how much the system shows you?
Yeah. Like how much it really kind of translates to you. I don't even know, honestly, all of the different applications, but SRAM keeps updating them to where how often they can basically connect more info to it. Like I said, they're working on a new dropper that I think is going to come out at some point, and I think they're trying to make the dropper talk to the live valve system. Sorry, Flight Attendant, man. Somebody's going to smack me.
We've confused the fuck out of our listeners, I think.
Well, if they're not asleep by now after all this data.
then they're like So SRAM is Flight Attendant.
Yes.
Best for cross country, unless you want a bike with two personalities.
Yeah.
And this new Neo is like, if you're gravity oriented
and trail oriented
trail oriented,
and you want, I think that the Neo would really help. I think there's going to be. This happened when the Brain kind of came out. Specialized kind of got really lazy on pedal efficiency, and they relied on the Brain to make the bike.
But I mean, the kinematics of the suspension design sucked at that point too. So they were overcoming the shitty fucking frame design.
Theirs versus some other 4-bars was definitely on the lazy side. They were using the Brain to give them the
pedaling efficiency,
the pedaling efficiency, and then letting the bike be super active, which is a selling feature if you're a marketing company, right? You're like, ours are super active, but the Brain stops it so that you get really efficient, but really their suspension design was bad. And so, the Brain had to be on the bike, otherwise it would just feel like you're riding through sand all the time. I think this Neo system is going to do the same thing. It's going to allow maybe some of these high pivot bikes, or high pivot idler bikes that really have this super plush suspension design that can really just gobble up the terrain, but have been trying to figure out how to make the idler do all the work as far as pedal efficiency. I think it's going to allow those bikes to be even more efficient, and it may distract from some of the bikes that have really good pedal efficiency designs. So like if you have a DW Link or a bike that's really been refined to be a pedaling bike, something that can, again, we're a pivot dealer, so I'll use those bikes, but like a Switchblade is super efficient pedaler, but it's 160 mil and 145 or whatever there is. And it can gobble up some good trail and do some light enduro. And you can even use it at the bike park. That bike doesn't need Fox Neo. So, could you have a less expensive design that performs just as well if you put Neo on it?
Interesting. So you can make up for past sins. With another part of the system.
So there's this thing that Fox did a long time ago called Pro Pedal that was put on the rear shocks. You remember Pro Pedal?
Oh, fuck yeah.
And man, we sold Santa Cruz at the time, and Santa Cruz
with their VPP.
Well, no, before that. So like their old Superlight.
That was a
single pivot. High
like
pivot.
the old orange.
Yeah, and if you had a Superlight and you wanted it plush, you just had to get ready for that thing inchworming down the trail like crazy, because every time you pedaled, it would kind of bob, and it was awful. And so we would tell all the people on Superlights, just crank up that air pressure, make it as stiff as possible, and it'll take the edge off. But it's a race bike, you don't want a lot of suspension. Pro Pedal came out, and it basically calmed the shock down, and it was awesome. And it really kind of compensated for a lot of bad designs. I wonder if the opposite is going to happen now, where bad designs are going to come out.
Oh no,
because the suspension is so good. Yeah.
Oh man.
So I don't know. That's my theory. So, so that's all of the electronic suspension.
All right. So is it worth the money? I mean, in general. So let's talk about different use cases. So let's go through like different types of riders. Yeah. So I'm like a once a year cross country racer. Is it worth it?
No. I'm
a 2 times a month cross country racer.
Yes, absolutely. If you're racing cross country and you're serious, and I'm saying this with my daughter, doing NICA. So I got to say that there's going to be some caveats to this, but if you're trying to be the fastest racer out there, and I feel like flight attendant is the way to go.
Is the way to go.
It really is.
And you also said, I'm the guy that I want a big hit bike, but I also got to ride with my kids or with my friend Josh that likes to ride cross country trails.
Or you're like in our area where you have this big mountain where you can go do really big, nasty stuff, or you're on Honeybee or the flattest.
Yeah, the Vortex.
Yeah, the super smooth trails. And you don't want to buy 2 bikes, and you really want it to optimize on both. I would say that's cheaper than 2 bikes.
That's cheaper than 2 bikes.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so let's go to the Neo. So you are and I can, let me make sure I got this right. With the Neo, I can put it on any bike.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a Neo. And it was interesting because I was like, I'm sitting here thinking my wife's birthday's in May.
Neo,
she's got a Switchblade, but you just said a Switchblade doesn't need it.
So the more efficient the bike, the less I feel like Neo will make that big a difference.
Okay.
So if your bike is super saggy and just plush as hell, and you love it because you hit something big and it just feels like a pillow, and you don't want to give that up, but you want to race some enduros, and you don't want to suffer every single time you have to pedal that thing.
Yeah.
Fox Neo is awesome. You're going to love it. Yeah.
So specifically, if you have a bike that doesn't have the best pedaling efficiency, this will help get you more pedaling efficiency, but also give you the squish.
And that's where the value comes in. Could you put Fox Neo on the most efficient bike like Lacey's, and would it be kick-ass? Absolutely. It would. But the most efficient, or the most value you're going to get, the most difference it's going to make is if the bike is.
So put it on an orange or something like that. Right?
Serious. Yeah. A bike that's really kind of needs the shock to do a lot of the managing of the suspension.
Right on.
So,
okay.
And so, so value. So like, I don't want people to be like, I don't need Fox Neo on a pivot. They come on pivots. You can get them on pivots.
Yeah.
If you want the best suspension and the most efficiency you can get. And Lacey may still be a candidate because with her racing.
Yeah.
Because every little bit that thing.
Yeah, every couple seconds helps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you're just going to, a bike park a couple times a year, I don't feel like it's a great value. If you got oodles of money and you're driving the Porsche or whatever, and money's not really the blockade, then
it's worth it.
You're going to enjoy it and you're going to love it. Yeah. But if you have to pick between your bike getting something and feeding the kids,
that's a tough choice.
Don't do
honestly,
it.
Right?
They eat a lot, maybe it's not feed as much. So
that was the wrong button. All right, man. Well, hey, so
now tell me this we talked about Buttercups.
Yeah.
And we talked about RockShox. If you wanted to do more Vortex on your bigger bike.
So I have the Gorilla Gravity.
Yeah.
And I am heavy, like 260 pounds right now.
Yeah. And
it's set up in I have the Gorilla Gravity set up in a smash configuration. So it's a 150 front, 145 back.
Yeah.
Fox factory, air shock in the back. And, I can take that on cross country rides, and outside of the size of the tires, it pedals fucking amazing.
What if it was better? Do you think you'd ride your Specialized as much?
Yeah.
You still would?
Yeah, because my Specialized weighs like 25 pounds or something, or 26 pounds, and that thing weighs like 34, 35 pounds.
Now,
so
what if you could only have one of those bikes?
if I had to get rid of had to get rid of every bike, I would keep the Smash and I would put the Neo on it. I think based on what you just said.
That's kind of how I feel. Like if a lot of our customers that come in here can't have multiple bikes. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's crazy.
Whether it's money or space, right?
Yeah, money, space, or commitment to the sport. You know, you know, sometimes they're just new, and like just getting one of these bikes is.
This is super expensive.
But yeah, I feel like for me, I bought one of the flight attendant systems because I really liked the one that I got from SRAM.
Yeah, and you're the suspension guru, so you pretty much have to.
And I found a use for it, and I'm kind of stoked to use it in that use and maybe get rid of one of my bikes. I'm maybe taking 2 of the bikes that I normally have. Yeah, I know.
Bullshit.
I know. Bullshit. It's true.
You'll just put this on more bikes.
Yeah, I'll just get a different type of bike. Pretty soon you'll see me on a fixie gear, blowing up my knees more. So, but
that's awesome, man. I've heard a lot about flight attendant. I've heard a lot about the Fox Live valve, and I've heard recently about the Neo. I really didn't know what was going on. I have a really good understanding of it now, and whether there's a use case for me. The pricing scares me, but we have established that I'm cheap ass, so that's part of it.
Yeah,
I can definitely see where this would benefit a good portion of the riding community.
Yeah, it's tough to sometimes spend the money, but I think when you get really into something, it's not that hard. You know, and I think, if you're really into guitars, you're going to spend way more than I would.
I know.
And if you're really into cameras, you're going to have a lens that costs almost as much as one of my bikes, and
I'm going to sell some of those guitars and buy more bikes, I think.
You don't need to get rid of hobbies. I'm the only one that did that.
I got too many hobbies, man. That's for sure. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate you taking through the research here, the suspension guru. You guys, if you really have questions, you can hit us up, and I'm sure Dane would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yep.
Yeah, man. You got any final thoughts for our listeners?
I think that's it, man. Just have fun out there.
Okay, we love you guys. Take care.
All right.